Hi everyone, this is your host MÍtalks, and welcome back to the NSSR, where we're encouraging you to run your own race to medical school one day at a time. So previously on this series, we talked about finding a mentor and identifying the good characteristics of one, and we talked about, what they are and what they aren't and what they can be and where they can be found. But you found a mentor, wonderful. Now what? The next step, the third step, is ask questions. That is the best thing that you can do for your own well-being. That is the best thing you can do for your future career. Ask questions. So we're going to talk about the big questions to ask and how we're going to address them. So, number one, why do you need to ask questions? It's a question asking a question, but whatever, we're not going to go into that today. Why do you need to ask questions? It's because you need to know what you're getting into. Medicine is not the most benign thing in the world. There's a lot of commitment that goes into it. And so you need to know what you are investing in, what you are walking into before you walk into it. Because again, I always say this, the last thing you want to do is prepare for something you don't actually want to do. You don't want to invest that kind of time and then it'd be wasted, right? So ask your questions. I want to tell you a little bit of a story to kind of make this make sense. I am, like I said before, I'm a Nigerian American, and so a lot of times I am connected to many Nigerian parents who would like their kids to go into medicine or is trying to find out more information about the medical field for their child. And so they usually come up and say, hey, can you please help me mentor my child? Can you please talk to my child about medicine? What is it that you need to do? How do you prepare for medicine and things like that? And I always start by, talking to the parents saying, let me break it down for you because things are a little bit different. And to put this in perspective, the Nigerian medical school system follows the British medical school system to some degree, where after high school, you go into 6 years of the medical school and then you start your practice after. Versus United States, where you do high school, then you do 4 years of whatever you want in undergrad, and then you go to 4 years of medical school and then residency and so on, if that makes sense. So there's a big difference in your training path if you want to be a doctor in either side. So a lot of times what I realized in breaking this down for parents is that they have the expectation that the systems are the same. And so they're thinking, oh, my child is going to leave high school at 18, 17, go through 6 years of medical school, and then they're going to be 25, 26, and then they're just going to become a doctor and it's going to be wonderful. But when I tell them, I'm like, pause. Your child is going to leave high school at 17, 18, go through 4 years of universities. They're going to be 8 plus 4 is 12. So 22, right? And then by the time they're 22, and that's assuming there's no breaks, right? So 22, you're leaving university. Then you have to go to 4 years of med school. So that person's going to be 26. And then you have to do residency, which is 3 to 8 years, depending on what you want to do. So the earliest, assuming there's no breaks, you can finish residency is 29. Right? If you're taking a 3-year residency, or 8 plus 6 is 14, 34 if you're taking an 8-year residency, right? So you're 29 to 34. And Nigerian parents are kind of allergic to you still being in education at that age because they're usually expecting you to be married or something by then. So usually they look at me like, so when are they going to get married in the middle of all of that? Or whatever expectation they've set on their child. You get what I mean? So it is always good to ask questions for that very reason. You don't know what you're walking into, especially because you've never run this road before. So ask people who have. Ask people who know what medicine is about. Ask people who are mentors, right? We talked last video about how to find a mentor, how to identify what a good mentor is, and I'll link that up above for you to look at. But those are the things that you need to know so that way you're not blindsided by being like, oh, I got a long way to go. That's not what you want to know in the middle of it, okay? So please ask questions. That is why. The other reason why you need to ask questions is because you want to optimize your preparation. If you ask questions on the front end of what do I need to do to make this happen, then you can make those steps necessary and have a smoother transition than if you're stumbling into and finding these things out as you go. And that's the whole purpose of this channel, right? Is to be able to provide you encouragement, not only encouragement, but also information on tactics, how to navigate this road, how to navigate this journey and make it as smooth as possible, even though we know it's not so smooth. So Next question we need to think about is, who do we ask? So we talked about your mentors, right? And please watch that previous video to talk about how to find a mentor and what a mentor is and what a mentor isn't. But also talk to physicians, and we talked about how to find those in the last video as well. Your pre-med organizations or people that are around you, family members, physician, or your physician, looking into those people. If you have family that are close by that are physicians, if you're fortunate to have physicians in your family, linking up with them. If you know people who know physicians, linking up with them. Also, like I said, social media has now become a very widespread way to connect with physicians who are open to mentorship, and channels like these that are oriented to guide you and help you in any way that we can. So definitely look at those. Another thing that I wanted to mention is upperclassmen who are, for instance, applying to medical school right now, people that are ahead of you in the application process, people that have done the very things that you are looking to do. Those are also good people to connect with and say, hey, how did you navigate this? How did you prepare for the MCAT? How did you, get letters of recommendation? Who do you think I should get them from? Things like that. Always look to people that are slightly ahead of you to get more information on navigating this road. So we got physicians, we got medical students, we got mentors, whoever those may be, on how to progress. Next thing we need to think about, how to ask. This is a very important one because I feel like a lot of times, especially in the social media age, we've kind of lost a little bit of that formality. And I'll tell you right now, it's still needed and still required, because if you want to talk to someone who is much farther ahead of you in this journey, it's really important to present yourself in a sphere of humility and curiosity, so that way they are more interested in devoting their time and investing their time in you. So the first tip, please be professional. I don't care if this person has a bikini shot in their Instagram page, if they say call me whatever, if they are very informal. I don't care. If you know that this person is someone you want to seek mentorship from, be professional, especially on the first encounter. Dear Dr. So-and-so, I am very interested in your story. I'm coming up in the interest of medicine. Would really love to connect with you. Are you comfortable, or are you willing to be able to talk to me about your experience as a physician, as a whatever the person is? And gauge their interest, gauge their availability, because a lot of people may be very good mentors, but they simply may be too busy to be able to do that. So having that first lead-in question to be able to gauge whether or not this person has the time and the availability to be able to invest in you is very, very key. So please be professional. Don't address them by their first name. Please don't Google them first to see what their credentials are. I think that's a really good tip that I've developed, so that way you don't address them by the wrong title. It's better to be overtly formal and let them tell you, hey, just call me Tommy, call me whatever, and then go from there, than to start out by saying, hey Tommy, like that's not a great look. Okay. Now for me, I'm very, very informal. Please, if you're coming to email me or text me, yeah, call me Tommy. I'm giving you permission. But not everyone is always in that boat, especially people who feel like, they've worked really hard for the degrees they have, and they do deserve that respect. So I think it's appropriate to give it to them and then let them break the ice on your behalf. So be professional. That is how to ask, in my opinion. And then you progress from there, you continue that relationship, and then you can start to relax as they let you. So the next thing is when to ask. And the short answer is anytime. Anytime is a good time to ask questions. Anytime is a good time for a mentor. When you are first interested in medicine and you don't know what to do or where to go, when you are beginning to plan how to pursue medicine, when you are looking at schools, when you're starting to study for the MCAT, when you're applying, when you're receiving interviews, any time in this journey is a good time to ask questions. There is never a bad time to ask questions. It will benefit you greatly if you get in the habit of asking for help and reaching for help at every stage before you do something, because it's much easier to say, hey, how do I get into this, than how do I get out of it? That's a harder question to ask and a harder thing to explain as well. So please feel free to ask questions at any time. Feel comfortable. If you have a great mentor, even if you don't, please reach out to me. I'm always available for questions, always available to be a resource. And like I said, there's no dumb question. There's no wrong time for a question. And then the last thing is what to ask, right? So you're like, okay, I know all these things, but what do I actually say when I meet my mentor or when I connect with someone that I'm interested in kind of picking their brains? So This I will preface by saying this is my individual opinion of how to do things. There are so many different ways that work for so many different people. If you find a good way that works for you, perfect. Stick to it and continue to do it well. But I'm just going to describe what I think is an okay way to start the conversation. So the first thing I would do is, like I said before, engage their interest, right? You don't want to run into an epistle of questions when somebody's like, oh, by the way, I don't have time to mentor you. You know what I mean? It's kind of awkward. So the first thing I would do is definitely gauge the interest of the person that you're potentially looking to be mentored by. And say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I'm saying doctor, it could be anyone. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, hey, whatever. I saw your page, or I connected with you by XYZ method, and I was very interested in your story, your profession. I'm currently interested in pursuing medicine, and I just wanted to know if you had some time for us to talk about some questions I had, or if there's a more appropriate way to reach you that you're more comfortable with or convenient for you, things like that. I think that would be a great first question because, one, you're not overloading them with expectations. You're trying to see and put the ball in their court to see whether or not they are available to be able to mentor you at all. And there's no awkwardness. You know, if they say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm simply too busy, we can chat another time, perfect. You have that person as a contact and a line of communication. And if they don't have time, you know, the next follow-up question would be, hey, I understand that you don't have time. I completely get it. Do you know anyone else that may be interested in mentoring or discussing with me? Does that make sense? So that would help you to be able to have more of a network, because now from that one person, even though they were not available, they can connect you with someone who is. So let's say they say, hey, I'm really excited to mentor you. Please ask me whatever you want, yada, yada, yada. One tip that I've learned is that people really like to talk about themselves. So start with them. Don't start asking questions about what you need from them. Start with them. Let them tell you about their space and their journey and their career, right? So the first question that I would ask is, I would say, can you tell me a little bit about your journey to medicine, right? If you're texting someone, maybe this is not the best question to ask because that's a long text, right? If you're setting up a Zoom meeting or a face-to-face, that would be more appropriate. But I think that's a really good first question because it allows them to get comfortable and tell you about themselves, and you get to learn about their interests because in their story will come out the things that are most significant to them. And then you can have a line of questioning that will help them be more interested in you. Does that make sense? So how did you discover your interest in medicine? You know, were there any hurdles that you had to overcome to get to where you are? How did you overcome those? And how would you advise someone in your shoes at the beginning of your story? And if you watch my interviews, those are the main questions that I try to hit. And you can definitely just take that script and run with it. I'm giving you complete permission, because if you can talk to someone about their story, you can learn a lot even before you ask one question. And then when they tell you those things, you can pick on and say, hey, I noticed that you said, for instance, that, you know, you struggled because of financial reasons when you were preparing for medical school. How did you overcome that? I'm kind of in a similar boat. And then talk about yourself and relate it that way, so that way they feel like they're investing their story in you, and that one, you're listening to them, right? Because if they talk about how they struggled financially and you start talking about letters of recommendation, y'all are not on the same page. Does that make sense? So give them the opportunity to talk about themselves. Give them the opportunity to talk about their field. What do you do? You know, what makes you excited about anesthesiology, or what makes you excited about dermatology? Whatever career they're doing, find out about it. What do they do for a living? What is a day in their life like? Things like that, right? And then begin to tie it to your interests. So I noticed that you said you like to do research in OBGYN. I'm actually really interested in women's health, and I want to look into this, and this. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any connections to people who are doing similar things? You see what I'm saying? And so from there, you can start to talk about research interests. You can start getting connected to people's labs, or if they're doing bench research, or even people's practices if they're doing clinical research, things like that. So those are great ways to really navigate that conversation with a mentor and gain the most from it, because it is supposed to be an organic relationship, but it does take some strategy, and hopefully you can get some of that strategy today. So the other thing that I wanted to say about what to ask would be, when you get comfortable, you've learned about them, you've learned about their profession, you know, asking them, what qualities do you think will make a great physician? Because if you ask a physician, they'll probably tell you the ones you need to know. And so learning from a physician what they think makes a good colleague is really important, because if you can hear those traits and you're like, I think I have that, I think I'm working on that, or this experience, This experience that I had brought that out of me. That's an application piece right there. That's a personal statement piece right there. That's an interview piece right there, right? If you hear a trait and you say, I got that from this experience, then you have something you can speak to and say, I talked to so-and-so when I was shadowing or when I was talking to him, and he identified this trait, and I remember that this is something that I got from this experience. So relating those pieces to your application, to you as a human being, will really help you down the line. And that's really why the clinical experience piece is important, because it's not for you to follow people around and understand what they're doing. I'm gonna burst your bubble. You're not gonna know what they're doing, okay? That's the whole reason for med school and residency and the fellowships and all of that, is to know what they're doing. So the point, though, is to be able to identify what a physician needs to connect with his or her patients, what a physician needs to be a good, compassionate practitioner. And so those are the things that you need to be able to watch for or ask for when you're being mentored by someone or when you're discovering all these things about medicine. So I hope that's very helpful. Like I said, there's many, many ways to do this. All in all, just be yourself. Be professional and be humble. Be humble, be curious. Those are the best approaches to get what you need out of a good mentorship relationship, even out of someone that you're just going to meet for one day. So I hope this was really helpful. If there are any questions on what you would like to see, please let me know. I would definitely love to respond to anything else that you think may be important. Is there anything I forgot to add? Definitely comment below and let us know about that. So this has been Tommy Talks. This has been the NSSR, and have some peace in your life. Please stay encouraged, stay safe, wear a mask. I don't know when this is gonna go up, but if it's still indicated, please wear a mask, and also be well. Have a good day. Bye, guys.